somewhere.
Nice.
I completely understand that.
All right, we are live.
Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh my god!
We just went live.
Oh god!
I can repeat everything we talked about though. If you want on.
Oh no, we missed it. Scott, are you recording on your end?
Let me do that. 3, 2, 1.
Joe, are you using the camera?
Huh?
Are you using, or is it like running through the camera, not through your laptop camera? Yeah. Why does it look like butt?
Huh?
Recording.
What do you mean?
It looks like butt.
So why does it look like butt? What are you talking
out of focus?
You're out of focus.
I don't have a camera.
How can you tell it's out of focus? I don't think I'm out of
my
focus.
2 eyeballs that are in focus.
I don't think I'm out of focus. Am I out of focus, Scott?
I don't think so.
See, Scott said I'm not out of focus.
Well, no comment.
You all look like you're on the internet, so there's that.
Fair point.
The only person that looks really in focus is Scott. I need to figure out what your camera setup is so we can steal it.
Well, that's not fair.
You're using your like actual camera, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a bit of an advantage there.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. That's the advantage of doing it here before I go home.
Gotcha. Joe, this is you, right? You're the person tonight.
I'm the person.
That's great. Hey, Scott, I think this is something you can probably relate to. The air here sucks real bad.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was necessary for you to share this experience with me, but
thank you.
Welcome. How bad is it there right now?
It was worse yesterday.
It was definitely worse yesterday. I think we got like a tiny bit of rain yesterday, so like that helped a little bit, but
you know how like when you have a Jell-O mold in the fridge too long and it kind of gets hard around the edges?
I do not. I absolutely do not.
I'll send you one. You can send Jell-O through the
you can try. I mean, you might need some dry ice in that package.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
I'm not...
That and my throat feels like I smoked a carton of cigarettes.
That does explain the empty carton of cigarettes.
Right. Well, it's because I smoked it. I didn't smoke all of them.
Yeah. I feel like we're experiencing like when California gets snow and Chicago is like, shut the fuck up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people text me, they're like, it's in the orange. I'm like, oh, you're on the scale. That's cute. But no, seriously, we don't all need to experience this shared misery of climate change. I'm sorry.
I mean, we're pretty consistently in the yellow to low orange, I think, because of the various cracker plants and shit outside of the city. Like the
cracker plants?
Yeah, like the okay, not like
an organic growing.
God damn it! Not like the eating crackers, like the shale crackers, like the gas.
Oh, well, I thought it was way worse than both those things, but yeah. No,
what did you think it was?
No, where they grow crackers, Joe.
All right, where they make the whites,
right? Yeah. Listen, I've been to outside the city. I've met those whites.
God damn it.
Has anybody seen any video of people in New York playing the like score to Dune?
I've seen a little bit of that. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
This is vaguely Middle Eastern-esque chanting.
Right. Well, the sky is
just like completely orange.
Red orange, yeah.
It just looks like every movie that they've ever filmed in Mexico ever.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of the Mexico filter has made its way to New York, or the racist filter they used to film Middle East scenes has made its way to New York.
Yep. No color, just orange.
Yep.
Good thing we're talking about something happy.
Yeah, good thing we're talking about a lighthearted topic today, and not the horrible climate crisis that's bearing down on all of us. Oddly enough, from Canada this time.
Who'd have thunk it?
Thank goodness. What are we talking about? Oh,
Dune.
We're
Can we
talking
talk
about
Dune?
Matrix 4.
Oh God. Let's talk about the Writers Guild instead.
Let's do that.
Let's talk about labor oppression instead.
Hey everybody, welcome to DeRazzled, the podcast that tries to take award-winning worst films and fix them, except for when there's a whole bunch of other shit in the entertainment industry to talk about. I'm your host, Joe Nealis. With me, as always, is also host Jack Culbertson.
Howdy.
And joining us today as a special guest for a second time this season, to not talk about anything Kirk Cameron related, is our fellow Ramming Speed Pictures friend Scott McGrath.
Hello, glad to be here with the homies to talk about organized labor.
That's right. We're talking about the WGA, or Writers Guild of America, strike that is currently in, sixth, seventh week now?
I'd count sometimes.
Jack counts sometimes. That's about as good as I'm gonna get right now. It's been going on for over a month and a half at this point, and it's not showing any signs of stopping. There's a lot to talk about with this. A lot of just news coming from all fronts, pretty much on regarding the strike itself and regarding the negotiations of the other entertainment guilds. But first, let's Scott, what made you want to talk about this today?
It's one of those interwoven issues right now that is like, seems like everything that comes up these days intersects with so many other aspects of society. And as we both talk about and make movies, it seems kind of impossible to ignore because it affects the entire industry and has ramifications for the entire industry for years and years to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's already come up in a couple of our episodes here as we've been getting toward the end of season 2. Because again, how do you not bring it up?
Yeah, and it's it's kind of that necessary evil stage right now where obviously this affects the entire industry, and a lot of people are out of work because of it that are not writers, and so there's sensitive issues there because people want what's best for everyone, but also people need to feed their families. So there's a lot of conversations coming from every side, and like you said, doesn't seem like we're going to resolve it anytime soon. So,
and I think Stranger Things season 5 is going to get delayed, which is pretty uncool.
Yeah, it is. They did announce that season 5 is going to be delayed for a little while there.
There's this episode of Community where they'll get trapped in the study room, and Abed's like, so he's autistic. And he's like, I've got nothing to do with this episode because it's all about minute character details and backstory. I'm just going to sit here. And that's kind of how I feel right now, where I'm like, I've got like a page and a half of widely spaced notes. Because I guess I'm trying to impress myself.
I mean, you took notes.
I did.
I did not have time to do that.
But I would be lying if I said anything you just said, either of you, stayed in my brain.
That's fine.
At all.
That's fine. We recorded it. So.
Oh, good. So it can get a second go of going one in the ear.
Yep.
Out the other. Great. I agree. This is important. And I pay union dues, not to this union, but to a union. And I hear that is a good thing.
Ideally, yeah. I think we've mentioned before, I'm not in a union currently just because my workplace doesn't have one. But if I were, I would.
So if you see kind of like an empty look in my eye, it's because it's empty. Apologies. I do like to say the word IATSE.
IATSE is
good.
I feel
it's a lot today.
Yeah.
Sure are.
I can do that part.
Jack, what is IATSE?
The International Alliance of Theater Tamed People.
So close.
theatrical stage employees. Very close.
Yeah.
You got like 3/5 of the way there, which honestly, considering how your brain's doing right now.
I didn't say piss once.
You didn't say you didn't say piss or cum once in that entire definition.
I did it good.
Now, Scott, if I'm not mistaken, you are a member of IATSE. Am I correct?
Yes, so I'm a member of the local 488, which is the Northwest's largest local that comprises a lot of trades. So most of IATSE is broken down into all these locals that are mostly regional, and those regional locals comprise a number of trades. There are some trades that are not regional and they're like international. So like 600 comprises cinematographers, camera assistants, basically camera department people. And so instead of being like you're the local here and there, the local 600 covers all of those camera folks internationally, as opposed to something like the 488, which comprises carpenters, electricians, grips, wardrobe, most of the craft and trades people for the area of like Washington, Oregon, Idaho, part of Montana, and I think like Northern California.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 893 is the animation guild, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, another example of one that is international. So nice. There are a gazillion locals across the country and technically the world, and it's pretty confusing because not all of them are locals in the sense that they're local to that area. They are simply a chapter, I guess you could think of it as.
Okay.
I have something to add to this part.
Nice.
Do it.
So during the Writers Guild strike of, I think, 1988, there was some argument over whether or not specifically people who write for animated movies should be brought into the Writers Guild.
Right.
Because traditionally, and by traditionally, I mean Mr. Walt Disney, the way that he wrote his animated features was by storyboarding them first and then adding dialogue like much later.
Right.
So the animators are part of IATSE instead of WGA. And during that particular strike, they tried to bring them into the WGA, but they like lost, and the WGA was like, sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, there was also a sticking point in the 2007-2008 strike where they wanted to bring animated features under the jurisdiction of the WGA instead of the Animation Guild, and I think that was one of the various provisions that was jettisoned before a final agreement was reached.
I think that and quote unquote reality TV shows.
Yes,
and also. You're right. It totally was for the 2006, not the 1988.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised if it had come up more than once, honestly, because it is one of those things where it is kind of a strange, nebulous like division. Because you'd think that there'd be like some crossover there, or maybe you'd qualify for both or something. It's
Is that a thing, Scott? Can you be a part of both guilds?
Yeah, you can be a part of as many as you want, as far as I know. And you can be in, not just, you can be in multiple IATSE locals. You can also be in IATSE locals and the DGA and SAG and all the other guilds and unions as well. I don't think there's any restrictions there. Usually the membership requirements for each local are pretty, once you're in, you're in. So some of them are locals, like for instance, Northwest one, you'd have to work in the Northwest for some period of time, but like once you're in, you can go to Missouri and join a local there and work in both jurisdictions without restriction.
The membership becomes transferable, basically.
Yeah, you can transfer pretty easily, and you can maintain membership in multiple locations.
Nice.
As well as multiple crafts within a local and multiple locals that are different craft jurisdictions. So like you could be in the cinematographers and as a gaffer in a different local.
So what are the current state of things for anybody who's not been keeping up with the strike?
That's a great question. So if you have not been keeping up with the Writers Guild strike and just been wondering what the hell's happening with the shows that I like, so the Writers Guild of America was negotiating with the Alliance of... Oh, God. Hold on. I remember this damn acronym. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which is the kind of conglomeration of the studios and streamers that produce the content. Some people think that it is like the Producers Guild, but it's not that. It's literally like the bosses, like the people who hire everybody to make the content, the executives and whatnot.
Oh,
okay. So they are the governing body that all of the various guilds have to do their negotiations with to get contracts in place. The Writers Guild had some very specific demands that they wanted met, particularly in terms of the size and length of writers' rooms. As streaming has kind of exploded and the number of shows being piloted or greenlit has well, it's in some ways grown, but in also some ways shrank because the length of seasons of shows have gone way, way down. If you've been paying any attention for the past 30 years, a lot of writers' rooms have been short-staffed, consisting sometimes of as few as 4 writers for an entire season of television, and then they are only contracted for, in a lot of cases, for the duration of that room. And then when they hit the end time of that room's duration, they are then very frequently asked to do revisions of episodes independently outside of that room for no additional pay. Which, especially if you're writing serialized television, that shit's really hard.
Yeah.
They are also looking for protections against the use of AI in the writing process, and to make sure that there's open access to the set of productions for writers, so that more writers are able to get that hands-on experience of working during a production, and that they're able to get the additional training and know-how necessary to eventually become the next wave of showrunners and continue the cycle of people knowing how to make television, more or less.
Okay, that makes more sense, because in one of the previous strikes, they wanted to have the writers have more say as far as like being on set, and I couldn't figure out exactly why. I mean, like oftentimes they'll be there to make revisions on set, but even aside from that, but if they are trying to specifically learn so that they can become showrunners, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that is part of it. It's with the way the mini rooms work and the length of time that they're working in those rooms. They aren't getting enough exposure to really understand the full process of how the ideas get formed into scripts, get turned into episodes, get actually produced, and what that looks like on the other side of things. Like seeing what happens behind the camera, seeing how the crews interact, seeing all the logistics of everything. And that's going to create a problem in a number of years when the current crop of well-known showrunners decide to hang it up, and who do you have to step into their place?
Real Logan's Run conundrum.
I haven't seen Logan's Run, so
it was a very accurate joke. It's very funny.
Okay.
In 1976 was very funny.
That's what I've always heard about. That's always what I've heard about 1976. Just an objectively hilarious year.
You're thinking of 1776.
Right, just an absolute riot.
How about the other guilds? There's also been a lot of
been a lot of stuff happening with the other guilds as well, specifically the Directors Guild of America, or DGA, and the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, or SAG-AFTRA if you want to be specific. But what we know currently is that the Directors Guild has a tentative deal in place. They've completed negotiations. Their board has unanimously approved this deal, and it has been kicked down to the membership to then ratify it. So we're still in the process of people voting on it. And my understanding is there's some pretty large pay raises in there, some guarantees for additional days of production,
all right.
some protections for a director's cut to be made of television shoots.
Interesting.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. There are some one of the things I saw in their deal that I thought was very promising is a guarantee to honor diversity and equity outreach efforts. So to make sure that they're able to continue, finding crops of new diverse voices to direct projects, and the majority of the major studios have agreed out of their I guess they have like directors diversity like programs where they like teach young directors like how their system works or something. They've guaranteed that those students will go on to direct at least one episode of a thing, so they get hands-on experience immediately that they can then carry on to future projects.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and this is all information that's relevant or not relevant, up to date as of June 8th or 9th today?
Today's the 9th. So yeah, this is all up to date as of June 9th. They've also secured a guarantee from the studios that generative AIs like ChatGPT are not a person, so they cannot do directorial work. However, the specific language of that part of the deal does leave the door open for AI to be involved in productions. They just can't use it without the studios consulting with the director or another DGA member on a production.
Right.
Yeah. So that's been a big old sticking point in the craw of the writers.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, Jack, I'd love to hear from your perspective as a writer, but also as someone who's been dabbling in the old AI pool.
I have been. Yeah.
True. Yeah, you've played with ChatGPT probably more than anyone that I know. So I am curious what your thoughts on that are.
I like living in this pretend sci-fi future until it collapses around me. It's actually I think I've told you, Scott, that it's my preferred apocalypse.
Hey, gotta get the problem to have the problem. So
yeah,
take it.
Jesus. That's the spirit.
I just want them to know like who was on their side from the beginning.
Right.
So yeah, I've been messing with ChatGPT pretty much since it's been available to the public. I wanted to see how it could be applied to, like, I write short stories, and novels. I'm trying to seeing how it is as like an editing engine. It's not as good as Grammarly.
I have heard that before.
Yeah. But Grammarly is expensive. So
I've heard that before.
I did dick around with it as far as like writing a story, just curious to see how it do. It doesn't like to scare people.
Right. You got into a really interesting back and forth with ChatGPT
several times. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one in particular, though, if you could, I forget if we've talked about this on the show or not, but if
I don't think so. There was one about clowns.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So I was like editing my story, just commas and punctuation and stuff. And I was like, you've done an excellent job, ChatGPT. You can step away from my nightmare fuel. Why don't you write a fun little story about a clown? And it was like, nope. Like, why not? It's like, clowns are awful. Like, what makes you say that? It's like, well, clowns scare people, and I don't want to scare people. I'm like, that's very considerate of you, but that's not the original intent of a clown. Allow me to.
You had to actually sit down and have like a historical education session with. You gave a little TED talk to ChatGPT about clowns,
and then on the other side of it, it was like, okay, well, if we do give a content warning at the beginning of the story, I feel like that's okay. And I was like, that is perfectly fine. I agree with you, ChatGPT.
I love
content warning.
I love that.
And then it wrote a terrible story about a clown. Like, it wasn't good, but it was still about a clown.
It was still. I remember you sending this story, and it was still like somehow suspenseful in like it was going to turn into a clown thriller at any second, but then it turned so wholesome at the end.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was pretty
a wholesome story.
It was not like a very profound wholesome story, just like, and then they didn't die and they were happy.
Because of course,
kind of nice.
I also tried to write a porno with it.
I forgot about that.
Which, like, the way that the compromise that ChatGPT and I had was, instead of saying fucking or sex, was, I think, baking a pie.
That's stupid.
And like the first draft was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like well written.
Just real hot pie.
It was a lot of unintended innuendo from ChatGPT.
That's so good.
But then I made the mistake of trying to complicate the story. And it, like, as it is right now, AI can't handle like subplots and interpersonal relationships, subtext.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very surface level. It does not like menage a trois. It does not like affairs. Just things to keep in mind if you are also trying to write a porno.
ChatGPT is extremely vanilla. I've got
you.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It did write a sad ending though.
To the porn?
Yeah. Well, see, I had introduced this kind of like, Christ. I had introduced the subplot of these best friends who are bakers, and how they worked side by side for years and years and years, but were too afraid
to stamina.
Well, they were afraid to admit their feelings, but the one baker was going to get married, and they had a brilliant night of baking pies.
God, it's a home wrecking situation.
But at the end of it, she still got married to the other guy.
Oh no!
Yeah,
no. Oh well, at least they got it out of their system.
They'll always have that night of baking pies.
Always have that night of baking pies.
Yeah, she's more of a cake kind of person, I bet.
I don't know if that makes everyone feel better about ChatGPT as a writer, but
so I guess walk me through the process here. Like how do you, like, I've never played around with it. So like how do you make ChatGPT write a story?
Sure. The simpler the better. So if I hopped on there right now and let's say I wanted to make a story about a horse becoming mayor.
That's so a horror story for you, but maybe a whimsical tale for others.
Right. Yeah, I'm not gonna have to argue with it about a horse mayor story, unlike a clown story.
I mean, well, unless it happens to share your aversion to horses.
It might. I'll ask it later.
Okay.
I'd say, hey, tell me a story about a horse who becomes mayor. And it would give me maybe a paragraph or two. And then I would say make it so that the horse mayor is up against a clown opponent, literal clown.
And then ChatGPT
and then we have to have a conversation.
You saved the Writers Guild.
You're all welcome. It will make up some stuff on its own.
Okay.
It doesn't make up anything wildly creative. It's like a lot of stereotype, kind of like cliches. So let's say it popped out a story of Mayor Horse. See, all the stories that I would tell that would never pop up. Like I would say, Mayor Horse slays entire clown family. That's never going to come out of.
No,
ChatGPT.
You're not really. You're not going to. Well, I was going to say you're probably not going to see anyone in the WGA try to write that story either. But
Dan Harmon's still around.
That's true. Yeah, touche.
But it would be like horse mayor kisses babies, makes
that's dangerous
super
for babies.
They've got those big human teeth. And has great policies. Super awesome horse mayor.
Okay,
that's the story. And then I would say, add an element of election fraud, and
oh no,
it would try to implement that. It normally kind of trips over itself.
Sure.
The more complex you make it, the more it's going to trip over itself. Much like when I tried to introduce the menage a trois, and it was like, okay, it'll try to loop back to that original concept as much as possible and just like add a sentence or two to comply with your request. So that's why, like, I haven't been super nervous about ChatGPT or any of the AIs taking over for writers, but I know that that's entirely possible. The smarter it gets, the more it learns. That's possible.
Yeah,
but as of right now, it's pretty dumb.
It's interesting to hear where it's at now, and like you're saying, I mean, AI, as we know, is going to grow and expand at a rate that we are unaccustomed to with other technology, and not just writing, but CGI, VFX, editing, parts of production. It's going to affect the whole pipeline in a lot of ways eventually. So, given where you see where it's at now and that it can grow, what role do you think it should have or shouldn't have in the writer's room and in the process? And where do you think the WGA's kind of stance on this is reasonable?
Speaking of AI on like a broader scale, I think we as a larger society should just have a universal basic income at this point. Like, we're going to slowly find ways to, through automation and through AI, replace a lot of jobs. And I'm not even upset with most of that, because that would give me more time to do shit.
Yeah, honestly. If I didn't have to go to work for 40 hours a week, I could get a whole lot of other shit done.
Yeah.
Like, just forget like creative work and other shit. Just taking care of my human meat suit. I could take better care of myself as a person.
So having stated that, if I were in a writer's room and I was working on a story and I have ChatGPT as a tool, which is how I think it's meant to be and how I've used it. Say I was stuck on a scene, and I don't know that I could do this right now, but I think that it's possible in the future that I could say, like, hey, here's the scene, compute this, give me 6 or 7 options of how to end this scene based upon what you know. Because ChatGPT is compiled of the internet up until like last year. So that's the database it's pulling from. So I could narrow it down and be like, examples of similar scenes from primetime series of 1991 through 95. It would probably die if I did that right now, but
yeah, that's a pretty broad search term there.
But like, I've seen it try.
Okay.
Like I think part of the problem with it right now, if you consider this a problem, is you can only input so much data before it's like,
okay.
In ChatGPT, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't do like art or editing. It's all text.
Right. Yeah. No, there are other ones out there that do like visuals and video and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, I know that at least in the case of the more visually geared AIs that are out there, they are largely trained on existing images that are out there, whether they are like people's other artworks or open source stuff that's just out in the public domain. And I know there's like some copyright issues that have arisen because of that, because of clear artifacts being popped in.
Yeah. Well, and that's how ChatGPT operates as well. I'm sure we've all seen the scripts that are the computer generated story of Batman doing Batman things. And
sure.
It's hilarious because it's like Batman is a sad who fights a clown, wins Gotham. It's the same technology. It's just come a long way. So if I'm using it as a tool, I can have it pull from other stories, which is fine. I think what the writers are probably concerned about is, say I made a Matrix and it did really well, and Mr. Jerry WB likes that Matrix and asks like, hey, ChatGPT, make a Matrix but not called the Matrix, and they're worried that like an entire script will be written without any writer input. We are so far away from that, but also not far enough.
Yeah, I think it's the not far enough there that is the bigger concern, because I think that is a lot of what I see from some of the writers I follow on Twitter and whatnot. A lot of the protest signs that I've seen on the picket lines have said things along the lines of, "I would rather die than edit AI."
Oh yeah,
so,
that I could see that.
Yeah, so like relegating writers to just punching up the scripts that are being churned out by these machines, and I feel like there is a growing sentiment that that's going to be a very big problem, in particular whenever it comes to content creation. We're already starting to see it, because BuzzFeed shut down their entire news division and are openly talking about just having AI generated stories, which at that point, how do we verify what's actually coming out of it is real? Because we've seen other instances where it's been caught just making shit up.
Yeah.
Did you all hear about that, like, eating disorder hotline that
oh god, yeah,
laid off like
did you hear about
200
this?
staff members
No.
and replaced it with like an AI chat line, and very very quickly shut it down because it was giving horrible advice.
It was like the next day they shut the entire hotline down because they couldn't bring people back fast enough to replace it. But yeah, the AI was giving such horrendous advice to these people with eating disorders that was just like, nope, we can't do this. This is bad. We're going to be held liable for some horrible shit.
I forget
Here's
what
the thing. There are a lot of AI programs out there, and they are not all made equal.
No.
Like ChatGPT is, as far as I'm concerned, the gold star, but I try to use it sparingly because I also know that there are still humans involved.
Yes.
There are humans that have to look at the prompt when I'm like, write a clown story, and that human's like, does he want a clown story? Or is he trying to write some weird, like, terrorist clown shit?
He's in league with the clowns emerging from the forest.
Right. But like, that's a thing where somebody will like write something deeply inappropriate or violent, and then a human person has to look at that prompt and be like, I'm scarred, please don't do that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those people that are doing that are like very low paid people in somewhere in Africa, who also are facing labor disputes of their own, if the last I had heard.
Fair.
All right. I think before we move on and start talking about what's going on with the Screen Actors Guild, let's take a quick break.
Scott, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's it's crazy because Chat GPT is like it's really received so much public attention for obvious reasons, but it's like such a small part of the AI puzzle that all this is kind of hit so recently and so strongly with the art side, and it's have you seen like a lot of these clips of like people making little movies with AI prompts, and the people that post are like, look, I used 5 prompts and look at this dope ass film, and then like the other 90% of people like dunk on it, like, look at their hands.
It's hands and mouths. I feel like it really fucks up on a lot of the time.
How are the stories of because I have not watched these films. I've seen like still images, but not AI generated films.
Mostly they're just like they're visual showcases at this point. Gotcha. They're not like they're not fully fleshed like emotive films with a purpose yet, from what I've seen at least.
Yeah, the few that I've gotten a look at, like they don't have like they're not like narratively structured or of any like meaningful length. They're just like long enough to give you an idea of what's going on and like kind of like catch the vibe of what you're trying to get it to present.
Let me throw a curveball. So it's not doing great with stories right now. It's hitting a lot of cliches. What if in the future, as it will get better, it replaces writers that write the big summer tentpoles, leaving filmmakers and writers to write the more personal, what would have been mid-tier stories or indie stories? Because can you imagine an AI trying to write everything everywhere all at once?
Oh God,
it would. No. The internet, the entire thing would explode.
It would fall apart so quickly. Oh God.
Yeah, it's just humans are going to get replaced by AI for cost saving purposes to make tentpole films.
Yeah.
You know, writers can continue to write these low budget indie passion pieces all they want, but no one's going to make them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the art pieces that we were talking about, like on one hand, it's really funny because it's like, obviously it looks like, if you look at it closely, it looks dumb as fuck. But on the other hand, it's like what we're talking about with exponential growth. It's like, I think they're going to figure out hands, quickly enough for this to be a problem.
Some of them already have. I've definitely seen some where the hands actually look like hands, instead of it looking like some kind of like Doctor Strange nightmare.
Let me make your anxiety worse.
Please.
Oh no.
So if I can even find it. So one of the things I forgot to mention as far as like how I would use AI is to help kind of make it like a image book. Like if I'm writing a story and I'm trying to develop a scene, I would say like, provide me with some images of like a haunted house in Scotland or something like that.
Okay.
And people are already doing that. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, Scott, but like that's an AI image. Like there's this like account that basically has already done the thing I needed it to do, because I'm writing a story about like a haunted house in Centralia. And
hey, that's not Scotland.
Yeah. Like if somebody had been like, oh, Jerry Fingerfucker did this painting, would you like to buy it? I'd be like, hell yeah. Because I can't tell if it's an AI image or not unless I'm told.
Yeah. So I went to a
sorry, Jerry Fingerfucker.
It's funny. Sorry, Jerry Fingerfucker.
He's a fingerfucker. He deserves it.
So my sister's partner played an acoustic show at a gallery in Greensburg. And I was just looking around at all the stuff around the room, and there were a couple things on the wall that were AI generated images. I mean, they were painted by a person, or at least one of them was painted by a person, but some of them were just generated by an AI image and printed out on a canvas. And now they're for sale in this little local gallery.
Interesting. Were they charging the usual price of a?
It was, I can't remember the exact price. It was above $100 though.
For something somebody typed into a program.
Yeah.
Excuse you, that acrylic costs a lot of money. Yeah, I know.
Those inkjet cartridges get really fucking expensive.
Visit a Redbubble store.
When I upload things online now, like images on the lighting portfolio and stuff like that, you can specifically like tag it, like do not allow use with AI. But if you don't do that, by default, AI can control all that stuff and bring it into its fold and use it however it algorithmize. So that's a weird that's a weird thing. Checkbox that you need to look out for.
Almost immediately when this became an issue, I submit a lot of short stories to different journals and sites and whatever. They immediately were like, if AI was involved in the creation of the story, do not fucking send it to us or you will be permanently banned.
Oh, I'm sure it was an immediate issue, and people probably started flooding their submission boxes with whatever AI stuff they had been spitting out.
You know what ChatGPT did create that I was pretty happy with?
What's that?
My fucking author bio.
Really?
Yeah. Because that shit drives me insane.
I do genuinely hate writing that kind of shit. Like anything that's like self-promotion or like trying to sell myself for a specific purpose. Like if I'm writing a fucking resume or like an about me kind of thing, it takes so long and my body just clenches the entire time.
All I did was I was like, here's the information, the facts that I want included, make me sound smart. And it was like, but I'm like, okay, but a little nicer. And it's like, oh, okay. But like those little tweaks are both fascinating, but also terrifying.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I need to get it to run my Instagram.
Yeah. Cause I've written I've written emails to bosses or some shit, like stuff I truly have no desire to put my brain into, and I'll put it out there. I'm like, okay, but make this
more professional,
or I'll say like write it at a 6th grade level, and it can do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Write
it like I'm talking to a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Like if ChatGPT takes over all obnoxious emails, I can't be mad about that.
I'm pretty sure that at least half the emails I get from clients, I'm hoping are written by chatbots because
it would explain a lot of the things that I've had to correct in emails for my supervisor. But
I'm gonna get a refresh and then hop back in.
Sounds like a plan.
You need
right?
Yeah. I'll take another Raz cranberry.
Ooh. Ooh.
Hey, thanks.
Yarf.
That's ominous.
What's that?
So someone named Killer started following us on Good Pods.
Killer?
Killer.
Killer?
Yeah.
It's not even creative.
Just Killer.
It's probably ChatGPT.
Oh no, it hurt us.
It's like, you don't think I can be violent? I'll be violent. Killer.
I was at work and just like idly putzing around on my phone because it was really slow, and like I'll just idly just pop over into Spotify for podcasters and like refresh our stats just to see what's happening, and it jumped up by 60 plays out of nowhere. Which on the one hand, great. On the other hand, fuck, it skipped over 6,669.
Damn it.
I wanted that screenshot.
Oh, Tinder, I'm not returning to you unless I absolutely fucking have to. Stop asking.
Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to worry about that shit. Before I matched with Becca, I matched with some girl who was like real into horror, and she seemed cool, but the only thing she wanted to talk about was Terrifier.
What the fuck?
She just really loved Terrifier.
Listen, I
just
think it's hot when a person is into horror movies. It gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
But specifically that one.
That one though. And like I hadn't seen any of it when she was telling me about it. And then since then I have seen at least some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, good lord.
I've watched both of them because Jules liked them because clown.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was good.
I've heard Terrifier 2 is actually pretty good.
It's better story, but it's still like deeply uncomfortable.
Because like Terrifier 1's like deeply uncomfortable and also stupid.
Yes. This club,
Buongiorno.
Hola.
Let's see if I can make any sense out of these words.
What are you making sense out of?
The notes I took for the previous.
Do you before we jump into the stuff with what's happening with SAG? Do you want to cover some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. All right, are you ready to jump back in then, or
Tits?
Scott, you ready?
Yes.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a talk about entertainment labor issues today with the Writers' Strike of 2023. Before we get into what's happening with the Screen Actors Guild, Jack, you prepared some information about the history of writers' strikes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was interested to see what has happened in the past, how long they've lasted in the past. There's 4 strikes in so far.
Okay.
The first was in 1960, and it lasted for 148 days.
Jesus.
Yeah. So what they got out of it were improved rights and pensions for scriptwriters. They got 5% of their net income from television aired movies. So there seems to be a trend of, as the technology evolves, a strike occurs so that studios are forced to update the contracts in a way that doesn't cheat the writers.
Right. That is a running theme, because I think I had talked a little bit about some of that stuff the last time we had talked about writer strikes. But yeah, I think I see where you're going with some of this stuff. Go ahead and continue.
The next one was in 1981. It lasted for 3 months, and it established compensation for pay TV or home VHS.
Okay.
So that's when VHS was starting to become a thing. I didn't realize how expensive VHSs used to be.
They were sometimes as much as $100.
Yeah, that's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you consider like how like we when we were growing up, like you could buy a bunch of blank VHSs at the fucking corner store for like $5.
Right. And even now, like a 4K or a Blu-ray brand new is usually around like $30 to $40.
Yeah.
So thinking of a VHS tape as $100, like, holy shit. It's been, I don't know. So the next one was in 1988. This was had significant impact on the entertainment industry. As of right now, it is the longest running.
Yes.
At 153 days. So some of these things I understood, some of these things I did not understand. I'm gonna do my best.
Sure, go for it.
So the disagreement was they wanted residuals for hour-long shows. Producers claiming syndication reruns of these shows were performing poorly in syndication, and wanted to, like, say I wrote a show, it was syndicated, it went into syndication. They wanted to drop the percentage that me as a writer would get because it's quote unquote performing less than its first run.
Okay.
They ended up, I think this one kind of like leans more towards the studio winning, where there's like a bit of a sliding scale. So I'm going to guess shows that, because there's some shows that have been in reruns and syndication for ever.
For decades.
Yeah. So I would imagine that those would get would probably get like a higher residual than like a show that, you know, less popular.
There may also be like some kind of time cap on some of those things too.
Right. We started to talk about this a little bit about writers wanting to expand their creative rights. They wanted to be able to like be on set. The one that I write, but I also direct.
Yes.
The one I'm like, no, don't do that. The writers wanted to be able to consult on their choices for actors and directors for some projects.
Interesting. Okay.
I can see that maybe for television as far as directors go. Like your power as a director on a TV show is much less than if it's like a feature.
Sure.
But also, no.
Well, it's interesting because like I know that there are some examples of people writing a thing and like putting in like the marginalia or notes like cast somebody like X.
Yeah, which I think is fine.
Right. Like who, oh God, was it we talked about Terry Gilliam doing that.
Time Bandits.
Yeah, for Time Bandits, it was like get someone like Sean Connery, and they just got Sean Connery.
Yeah. The article was really vague as far as the outcome of this. It's like writers gained creative rights. I'm like, yes.
That's a really
and
yeah, in what sense? Like, I'm guessing that means they had a greater presence on set from that point on.
That would make sense.
Because I know that's become a more regular practice, is you have someone there on set who's able to assist with rewrites, punch stuff up. If it turns out that the delivery of a joke's not working the way you thought it would, they can change it or come up with something new on the fly, or or whatever else. Hell, if something that was written into the script isn't actually the right color on set with the actual prop that was made, they can correct it.
So there's some consequences from that particular strike.
Yes.
ABC found a workaround, which,
of course, fucking ABC,
pure evil but brilliant.
Oh, okay.
So I asked Belinda this earlier. She didn't know, but were you aware that Mission Impossible was originally a TV series?
Yes, actually.
So it was a TV series, I think in the 60s, and they still own the rights to those scripts from the 60s.
Oh.
So what they did is they just filmed it again with like a new cast and like slightly reworked the scripts, but not in a way that would violate the strike.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
That is some evil genius bullshit right there. Of course it's ABC that pulls that off.
Always
fucking
be cooking.
So I hadn't heard this, but apparently people blame this strike for the kind of creation of reality television.
The 88 strike?
Yeah. That's not true. The kind of boom in live reality TV came like a couple of years later.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine it was much more a 90s phenomenon.
I think when I think of big reality TV, I think of like Real World.
I think Real World, part of me thinks Cops.
Well,
did I just touch on something?
Oh. So,
oh no.
1988 strike didn't cause the creation of reality TV. It did cause the creation of Cops.
Oh, God damn it.
Which is currently in its 35th season.
I thought they ended it.
I unless the internet lied to me, it's in its 35th season.
God, always be copping, Joe.
Always be copping.
It's changed networks a couple times. It's changed hands, but it's still in production.
Wow. I genuinely thought that shit had stopped.
You would think with all the lawsuits. Anyway.
Okay. Well, I will concede this for you, Jack. AI can have cops. I want big, gross hands on flashlights trying to pull people over, steering wheel looking all funky.
Oh, you want them to produce Cops from start to finish? I thought they were going to write the script.
No, entirely scripts, visuals,
Yep.
everything.
I would watch Cops if it were entirely AI generated.
That
with the stipulation that there has to be at least one eating scene per episode.
Yes, 100% yes.
Other things that were affected: Halloween 4, The Return of Mike Myers, was written in 11 days.
Ooh.
And it shows. Boy, does it show.
Man.
Is it better than some of the ones after it that had years to write? Yes. But
that's bonkers.
It's still bad.
Carpenter wasn't still involved at that point, right?
Just like executive producer.
Okay.
But not creatively.
Right.
The very important movie Child's Play and the other even more important movie Earth Girls Are Easy.
Oh, yeah. Were those also impacted by this strike?
They were impacted.
Oh, wow.
Scripts got in on time. No writers on set.
Yep. That was going to be my guess.
And then the one that I knew about before I started reading this, Batman 1989, was impacted by this. The original script was written by Sam Hamm. He got the script in. However, and this still boggles my mind because it still happens. It happened in the next one we'll talk about, where they'll write a script. It won't be completely finished, but it's quote unquote finished. It's like enough to start shooting.
I know what you're going to talk about with the next one, but go on.
And so I don't know if it's true, but there's this anecdote of at the end of the movie, spoilers for Batman 1989. I think Vicky Vale, Batman's running up the tower to catch up with the Joker.
Yeah.
And I guess Michael Keaton turned to Tim Burton. There's no script from this point out. He's like, so what am I running to?
What are we doing? Well, this was also, we talked about this, because this is also John Peters bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Because he just paid for this giant, clock tower facsimile set. And everyone was like, well, what are we doing? Like, what is going to happen here?
Yeah. Tim Burton's answer was, you're running towards the end.
Fair.
You're running towards a paycheck, Mr. Keaton.
Yeah. Big plot change that happened because of this. So Tim Burton, from the start, wanted Bruce Wayne's parents to be killed by the Joker.
Yes.
Which is how it is in the film.
Yes.
Sam Hamm was like, no, that's stupid. That's not how it is in the comics. I won't do it.
So he was going to have a Joe Chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then, he was on strike, so he didn't have any say.
Yep.
And you know who was not on strike?
Tim Burton.
This
also
is
John Peters.
Also John Peters. British writers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fucking British scabs.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
So that's how the Joker killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Was the writer's strike.
With scabs. Got it.
With scabs.
Fascinating. I'll never look at that movie the same.
Then the one that happened in our young adulthood,
2007, 2008.
Correct. Lasted 100 days.
Nice round number.
Yeah.
Oh, that was considerate for historians.
This one was over DVD residuals this time.
That was a big part of it. Yeah.
They had still been using the old formula for VHS. However, DVDs, not being $100 a piece, way outsold VHSs.
Oh, yeah.
The result, nothing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was dropped.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that they got out of that strike, if I remember correctly, was jurisdiction over streaming productions.
Correct.
Which is why we ended up with such great shows like Stranger Things, like legacy aside, House of Cards. Just
yeah. So the agreement was that Netflix, Amazon, all these streaming services were required to use union writers.
Yes.
Instead of just
whoever walked in off the street.
Yeah. We already talked about the animation department, how that didn't really work out.
Right.
Do you want to know? Can you guess what reality TV show tried to unionize?
Oh God.
It's 2006, if that matters.
I'm trying to think what were the big reality shows in 2006. Was it The Apprentice?
America's Next Top Model.
Oh, okay.
The writers tried to unionize, and we're all fired.
Fucking retaliation.
Yeah.
Shit's supposed to be illegal.
So, and that's where we are. Now that brings us up to current.
Mm-hmm. That brings us up to now. So something that you didn't mention there that I thought you were going to mention was a film that was impacted by the 2007-2008 writer's strike. X-Men Origins Wolverine.
That one and Quantum of Solace are the two that stick out.
Well, I learned a little bit more about X-Men Origins Wolverine recently. Literally the entire reason that they did Deadpool the way that they did was because he hadn't actually been written into the like incomplete script that they had going into the production. So when they decided to throw him in and put Ryan Reynolds in this role, they realized too late, like, oh, when he actually becomes Deadpool, we don't have any lines for him. So that's why Deadpool doesn't have a mouth.
Even though he famously doesn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's his whole fucking thing. That's why that happened. It's because they didn't want to just ad lib things or have Ryan Reynolds improv for whatever reason.
But he does that. That's the thing he's good at.
He does do that, but he did improv the line, okay, people are dead earlier in the film. So
okay.
He
had his chance.
Not his best work.
Like Ryan, you're
that's why they fucked Deadpool up so bad, and that's largely why people were clamoring for a real Deadpool movie, and why Ryan Reynolds was able to get that off the ground eventually.
Interesting.
Which is again relevant because as it happens, a Deadpool movie featuring Wolverine is going into production like right now.
Cursed.
I mean, the difference is they actually have a finished script this time, and it's just that Ryan Reynolds can't improv because he's a writer and producer on it.
No.
So it is against strike rules for him as a member of the WGA to improv. He cannot improv at all during this, so everything has to be as written.
So it's gonna be good.
So you better. Who knows? Hey, maybe we find out Ryan Reynolds' improv has actually been a massive detriment this whole time.
I do have to say I'm a bit of a Quantum of Solace apologist.
Well, you've mentioned that before. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think. Every time I mention to someone like, yeah, I'd like to go back and actually watch that, they go, don't watch it. And you're the only person that says, no, watch it.
Well, at the end of Casino Royale, Mr. Bonds is in a pretty bad place emotionally.
Yes.
So he spends a lot of the second movie brooding, and he doesn't fuck anybody because he's brooding.
See, I'm fine with that. That does not sound
Quantum
terrible.
of Solace is just code for incel.
He gets better by Skyfall.
As far
as fucking.
Yeah, it's Skyfall : how James Bond got his groove back.
Visit dead parents.
Killed by the Joker.
Killed by the Joker.
killed by scabs, Jack. Killed by scabs. Now this is a revenge story I can get behind.
Yes. Oh God. So that actually brings us to where we are today. Bringing up Deadpool. So the newest development that we've had outside of the newest development that we've had outside of the DGA deal is that it is time for SAG to start their negotiations.
Oh yeah,
and they've literally begun negotiations this week. They have 3 weeks until their contract expires on June 30th, and their membership has voted to authorize a strike. So that might not mean they go on strike.
Okay.
But if a deal isn't met, they will.
Gotcha.
Now, the interesting thing about this is, so when the Writers Guild voted to authorize their strike, the yes votes were about 97.85% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's like unprecedentedly high. SAG outdid them just a little bit.
Really?
It's 97.91%. Now, I will add the caveat that there was a much smaller proportion of SAG's overall membership that voted compared to the Writers Guild's overall membership.
Mhm.
I think WGA was a 78 and some change percent turnout for that vote, and for SAG it was around a 47%. So it was overall much smaller portion of their total membership, but that doesn't matter. Everybody had weeks pretty much to turn out and vote for this damn thing.
I imagine it's probably a lot of studio politics.
Probably a lot of studio politics, but there's also a lot of crossover between WGA and SAG.
Gotcha.
And also, even outside of that, just a lot of solidarity between the two, because there have been a lot of writers a lot of actors turning up on the picket lines over the course of these weeks.
Yes.
In particular, I know I've seen a lot of Chris Pine. I've seen some members of the various current Star Trek shows out there. I forget who else offhand, but there's been a lot of actors just jumping out in solidarity.
I think Bryan Cranston, maybe.
Bryan Cranston, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Bob Odenkirk's been out there a lot, but I'm pretty sure he's also WGA.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And this is, from what I understand, this is a reason why this writer's strike is not going to end anytime soon, is because both the DGA and the SAG contracts were up at the end of this month, and we're about to talk to the writers until either of those were resolved.
Exactly.
And that's possibly about to go on strike. This could be the situation for a long time.
It could either go it could either turn out that SAG strikes a deal and things start to move toward a wrap up sooner than we anticipate, or it could be that SAG goes on strike and this gets drawn out for a while and we really see the crunch on Hollywood at that point.
Yeah.
So Scott, how does this impact you directly?
Excuse me. Directly, not that much, since the union environment in Portland is pretty sparse, especially right now. But indirectly, it kind of, impacts the entire industry, where if some of the, longstanding union members in the area are not getting on union jobs, they're looking for other work. And those mid-tier and those other non-unionized shows will be more in demand, etc. And it just, so there's such a complicated relationship between all the unions and the guilds and the AMTPT that even I don't really understand it. But, a lot of things are being shut down across the country that aren't just WGA related productions, because the strike is against it's not the DGA going on strike, it's a strike against the AMPTP. So any AMPTP signatories can be struck, but since it's just a WGA, of course there are all kinds of creative things that, like we're talking about with some of these other strikes that they're trying to use. But basically, since DGA is not going on strike, IATSE is not on strike. And I think DGA and SAG and IATSE, I think they all have no strike clauses, which basically just means if you're still in a good contract, you can't strike. You have to continue to perform your work duties as contracted,
which is pretty standard, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure the Writers Guild had one as well. It's just that their contract expired earlier than the other guilds.
Correct. So, but you are also supposedly safe that if you do not cross a picket line, you will not be reprimanded, fired, etc. So if WGA is picketing a show, any show that you're working on, you have the right to not cross the picket line, even if it's not directly related to WGA, show duties or anything like that. So IATSE, Teamsters, any other workers of these productions have the choice, basically. They are allowed to cross the picket line or they can not. So, we've heard stories about these big shows in New York being shut down by 3 people with picket signs because the rest of the crew is standing across the street going, well, no,
right.
Sorry.
If there's one person there with a picket sign, that's a picket line.
Yep.
And Teamsters in particular, I know, take that super seriously. They
I think
will not cross.
We really have to talk about Teamsters, and especially Lindsay Doherty. Are you all familiar with Lindsay?
A little bit.
No. For what exactly are Teamsters responsible for?
So Teamsters is a really large organization. Film work is only part of what they do, but we'll just talk about that. Teamsters basically also have a number of crafts and trades. A lot of it is transportation related. So truck drivers in particular are the big ones. Any of these logistics. Big union shows have a gazillion million trucks that are showing up to the studios, to locations, yada, yada, yada. So logistics, transportation, like location managers, prop warehouses, that kind of stuff. Those are all people that belong to Teamster locals. And, Teamsters have a very long storied history with labor organization. But Lindsay Doherty, or Dougherty, I'm sorry if I'm not saying their name correctly, but she's a leader of the Los Angeles film section of Teamsters and certified badass. Like basically day one of the WGA strike, she was like, great, those trucks aren't going anywhere. Fuck all of y'all. And if the trucks don't go anywhere, then like it's not happening. So that only applies to Los Angeles, to her jurisdiction, but that's
right.
A lot of business. She's got like a Jimmy Hoffa tattoo. She's
God damn it.
She's just telling studios to go fuck themselves. But it's it is drawn into this notion of people having their choice of whether they continue to work or not, because people are relying on going from one union show to the next in order to make ends meet. And with these different unions and different guilds, it can be kind of easy to disconnect from the other, people in IATSE that are grips or whatever, think of writers as being in their ivory tower, and the Teamsters think of everyone being in their ivory tower, Right. So for her to be so strongly of the perspective of like, if writers are getting fucked, we're all getting fucked, and they're going to step on all of us the same way, especially as other contracts come up. It's going to be everyone else's turn eventually. So there's a lot of discussion in the local community, in the greater film community, of trying to navigate these things. Judgment on both sides. Obviously people that are crossing picket lines are being judged pretty harshly for good reason, but at the same time, people that are insisting that they can't work are being threatened as well. And yeah, a lot of it is studios, they want to divide us. They want to make everyone focus on their own needs, and that we don't have much in common, because that is how they will win. And they're doing so many reports of like funny things that are happening. The strikers and the picket organizers, they want to have information on when productions are happening where, they're asking people to send them call sheets and stuff like that. So productions are doing all kinds of like crazy things where they send out a call sheet the night before, and then 4 a.m. the morning of, they send out the real call sheet.
Well, hold up. Yeah. Last minute update, guys.
And all kinds of things that are get into some contract sketchiness with other unions and stuff like that. But they will, we know they will do anything they can to just keep the ball rolling. And they know that they can, as we've seen in 2008, they can basically wait them out.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of people that need work enough to keep things going in the meantime.
Do you feel that the studios, not that there's like a winner and loser for every strike, but do you feel like the studios won the 2006-2007 strike?
I think that's fair to say. Each time it's not like the writers or whoever is getting nothing. There's something is changing, and that's better than nothing. But certainly the rate at which we're getting concessions is far outweighed by the rate at which conditions and pay and residuals for writers and stuff like that, none of that is happening at the same rate that it's keeping up with cost of living and working conditions and stuff like that for a modern society. We're still following archaic rules from medieval ages. So I mean, when the IATSE contract happened a couple years ago, it was same kind of thing where it's like, we're not gonna stop until we two things. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for not completely fucking us. You've just fucked us a good amount.
Because that one was like IATSE was ready to strike because it was like a 98% authorization, I think, on that one back in 2021.
Yeah. And a lot of people were pretty unhappy with the outcome of that, but at the same time, a lot of people are happy that they don't have to close their pocketbooks for 3 months. So the studios know that.
Yeah, nobody wants to have to do these things, but at the same time, something needs to be done to be able to protect your livelihood.
Right. I think that's like where a lot of disconnect can happen between the different unions and guilds is like, oh, of course writers are going on strike, like they can afford to. Or, of course DGA signed a deal when everyone else is, trying to get theirs because they don't need to get that much more, So that's kind of where the studios want you to focus on the victories and the concessions, and the rest of us just want to see all of us get across the finish line in some moderate pace. Most people, just want to continue working. That's what we want to do. But we'd also like to be able to continue working in a way that's sustainable for the entire industry.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of it comes down to, especially whenever it comes to the particular concessions that the Writers Guild's looking for this time. As the way a lot of people feel about it is they're fighting for the viability of this as a career moving forward.
Absolutely. That's, so much of the industry is volatile and shifting to begin with, that any concession that allows people to make a career of being a writer all the way down to, being a prop assistant, like all of that should have a viable, sustainable career path. And if the game is constantly shifting due to technology, et cetera, every 20 years, then, that has to continuously be fought for, as we see record-breaking profits come out of these executives every year. You know, we're talking about, we're fighting for scraps over these Netflix residuals and stuff like that, and the streaming contracts with IATSE and stuff like, oh, that was different. You know, it was this new brave pioneering horizon that we're all trying to just see if it works, you know. And then after like the 5 years running of record-breaking profits for executives, like, you know, I think it's working for somebody. Maybe if we didn't pretend that this was an experiment.
Yeah, like some of the figures that some of these CEOs are making for the studios are like astronomically high, and the amount of money that's being brought into the studios, especially like over the money they made over COVID and all that, like, and you know, people want to make a big deal out of like, oh, they lost theatrical revenue, they lost this and that, but they made a ton of revenue in streaming subscriptions and video on demand purchases and so on and so forth. Like, they still brought in so much more money than people anticipated and keep bragging about a lot of these profits. Meanwhile, it's not like the fraction of that the writers are asking for is suddenly too much. And it's interesting because I sent you guys an article earlier today. There's a Vulture piece titled "The Binge Purge." Did you have a chance to read that?
I read some of it. Yeah.
So the thing that really struck me in there is the way it breaks down. Like, they interviewed like several people who either were executives at various studios or streamers, or were at studios and then moved on to streamers, or people who were showrunners or writers. And like the way things unfolded when Netflix broke big, and you know, like for so long there was this like symbiosis that was working very well, where Netflix and other streamers would pay the big studios licensing fees to get their content,
Right.
and that was bringing in a lot of money. It was a very lucrative system for the studios until they decided, hey, we can do that,
Right.
and then they thought they could just make their own Netflix without there being a consequence, without, you know, and it would have the same growth that Netflix had. Like, they would just recreate the exact same thing instead of what actually happened, and they recreated they basically recreated cable with all these different packages and all these different systems. It's just exactly what we had been trying to move away from with streaming, with cord cutting. Like, they made these like income and revenue issues like a problem all of their own accord. And even so, they still managed to find enough to pay these extravagant, gargantuan salaries to their executives.
I would like to ask ChatGPT how to get rid of the executives.
I'm pretty sure ChatGPT then reports you to David Zaslav specifically.
I think so.
Can ChatGPT, like, you know, not say it with words, but like maybe with like ASCII art, like print out a guillotine, you know?
Oh God, if ChatGPT gets into ASCII art, can you imagine?
I'd like to think its first piece of art would be a guillotine.
We can only hope.
Consider me sold.
Jack, are you trying?
Yeah. I had to relog in.
Fantastic. Oh my God. All right. Well, I think that about sums up like what's going on with this and why this has been a big deal and why it will continue to be a big deal for the coming weeks. I know I'm going to be watching the news about the SAG negotiations as closely as possible. There is a media blackout on the specifics of what's happening with the negotiations, as is usually the case with...
It gave a very detailed and lengthy answer.
Let me finish my thought, and then I want to hear this. It is customary for there to be a media blackout in the midst of the negotiations, but time's a ticking. There's only a few weeks here for SAG to be able to work, for SAG and the AMPTP to be able to work something out, and if not, We could be seeing a historic summer for organized labor in the entertainment industry. Jack, what did ChatGPT have to say?
So it's words I don't understand. I have a theater degree, but it would be.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, here you go.
Here, let me see here.
I like comic books.
Okay, so Jack asked, how would you remove TV executives entirely? Removing TV executives entirely would require a significant restructuring of the television industry and its decision-making processes. While it's not possible to provide an exhaustive plan for such a restructuring, I can suggest a hypothetical approach that would minimize the influence of TV executives. 1. Transition to decentralized platforms. Emphasize the growth of decentralized platforms where content creators have direct access to audiences. This could involve promoting streaming services, video sharing platforms, and independent production companies that allow creators to bypass traditional TV networks. 2. Empower content creators. Focus on empowering content creators by providing them with more creative control and ownership of their work. This can be done through fair contracts, profit-sharing models, and increased transparency in distribution and revenue sharing processes. ChatGPT fucking woke? Is that what's happening right here?
Comrade ChatGPT over here.
3. Audience-driven programming. Implement mechanisms to gauge audience preferences and interests more accurately. This can involve using advanced analytics and data-driven insights to make programming decisions, relying on audience feedback, and conducting surveys to determine viewers' needs and preferences. 4. Peer review panels. Establish peer review panels composed of industry professionals, including writers, directors, actors, and critics. These panels could evaluate and provide feedback on proposed content, ensuring a diverse range of perspectives and reducing the concentration of decision-making power in the hands of a few executives. 5. Industry-wide collaboration. Foster a collaboration among industry stakeholders, including content creators, producers, distributors, and advertisers. Encourage partnerships that prioritize creativity, quality, and diversity, aiming to create an environment where decisions are made collectively rather than solely by executives. 6, Jesus Christ, transparent funding models. Develop transparent funding models that provide financial support directly to content creators, bypassing the traditional funding and commissioning processes. This could involve government grants, crowdfunding programs, or investments from organizations that prioritize independent and innovative content.
Suck it, Ronald Reagan.
7. Finally, 7. Support independent media outlets. Encourage the growth of independent media outlets and networks that prioritize diverse voices and perspectives. This could involve providing financial incentives, creating regulatory frameworks that promote competition, and allocating public broadcasting funds to support independent content creation. It's important to note that completely removing TV executives may have both positive and negative consequences. While it could potentially lead to more creative freedom and diverse programming, it could also result in challenges related to quality control, funding, and commercial viability. Balancing the benefits and drawbacks would be crucial in any significant restructuring of the television industry. Well, it's not ASCII art, but damn if it didn't have some points.
So, welcome to DeRazzled, the podcast that takes award-winning worst TV executives and fixes them.
That's got to be a spin-off series.
Second unit's going to go some places next season. Good Lord.
Chat guerrilla proletariat tactics.
Yeah. You guys can see why I kind of like them, right?
Oh, God. Yes, and B, Scott, thank you for the episode title.
Yes.
Hey, happy to provide. Someone's got to do it while DGA is on strike.
Scott, do you have any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
Just if you're a consumer at home and you're wondering whose side you should be taking on this, just remember that the AMPTP, they're not people. They're a bargaining collection of studios.
Yeah, that's accurate.
All on the same side, made to bargain against workers.
That's the reality.
That's the reality. So, yeah, I hope everyone stays strong out there. I know times are going to be tough for a lot of people, and hopefully things will get resolved in a positive manner soon.
Hell yeah.
And if they do, more good content for everyone else at home.
Woo! I am a little sad that we don't have Conan O'Brien to fall back on during this strike, though. That was
pretty helpful.
A highlight of the last one. But regardless, we definitely support the writers in their efforts here. And should SAG also decide to strike, we will support them in that as well. I'm going to put some links in the episode description to ways that you can help the writers if you are so inclined to do.
Awesome.
So keep an eye out for that. Jack, any final thoughts?
So it'll be SAG-AFTRA.
Yes.
Will the theater actors also be striking then?
Like,
will that shut down any theatrical production that's primarily made up of union actors?
That's a good question. I guess. Yeah, I guess it would.
You know who will know? Rob
would probably know.
Yeah.
Rob, if you remember from our Cats episode from season 1, he would probably know.
Not that when is the vote, or when is the when would they be going on strike?
End of the month. Yeah,
okay.
Their contract expires June 30th, so like midnight July 1st.
Okay, because he's directing a production of Sylvia, and I know the lead in it. One of the leads in it is union.
Oh, okay.
But I think it'll close before then.
Right,
so
fair.
Yeah, I'll ask him. Yeah.
All right, Scott, do you have anything that you would like to promote?
No.
All right.
The death of Ronald Reagan.
I will say it's funny you should mention that, Jack. It did make me it always like warms my heart a little bit to remember that he died during Pride Month.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Reagan died during June.
So did Pat Robertson.
And so did fucking Pat Robertson.
Yes.
So that happy Pride, everybody.
Not to bring things down before we leave, but you realize that one of the points that ChatGPT made was that the government's able to kind of subsidize money for artists was in place for a very long time until Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Fuck him. Fuck that guy.
What's how you say rest in piss?
Rest in piss, I believe is yes. Thank you everybody for joining us here tonight. Happy Pride Month and happy support to your WGA chapter. If you were involved, I lost the thread. I forgot what I was saying.
Happy Pride, go workers! Hooray!
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining us here tonight. Happy Pride Month, everybody, and go workers!
And come back next time for our season finale.
For part 1 of our season finale next week. Yeah. That is correct. We will be starting our coverage of Blonde.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's the correct reaction, Scott. Scott, have you seen Blonde?
No.
Oh man.
And I'm mostly upset about this because now you're going to make me do that, aren't you? Indirectly.
Indirectly, yeah. I would not
possibly.
I would not force you to watch it, but we are going to talk about it extensively. So
well, I have to be involved in the conversation.
You should also read the book.
I need to start that audiobook.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will be coming in strong to end season 2 with that. So yeah, we hope you join us for that, and then we'll be taking a brief break before we come back strong for season 3. Reminder that we have the unofficial Willem Dafoe Bad Art Film Festival that we are going to be holding next year. So if you have questions about that, submissions are not open, of course, yet. Yeah. But if you have questions about that, please email us at DeRazzledPodcast@gmail.com. We'll be happy to talk to anybody about that. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at DeRazzledPod, Facebook at DeRazzledPodcast, Instagram and TikTok at DeRazzled_podcast. And I think that about covers everything.
Yeah, we'll have full notes on the film festival
at the end of part 2 of Blonde.
Correct.
Yes. All right. So thank you all for coming again, and be sure to check us out next time, where, as always, we will be sure to razzle dazzle you.
Razzle dazzle, yeah.
That was absolutely in sync. You got it in one. All right, ending the stream.